In this lesson, we're covering how umpires are scheduled for games. We'll talk about what goes into assigning and what you can do to get more games. First, it's important to note that when we are umpiring below the professional level, we're most likely doing so as an independent contractor. And as an independent contractor, there are certain legal aspects that affect our role. To start, unlike an employee, as an independent contractor, you're not hired and given a specific schedule. Instead, you get to choose what games you accept or decline that are offered to you. And as independent contractors, we always have the right to decline games as they come to us. But it's important to note that there are repercussions for declining too many games. For me, when I'm assigning games, I find that when umpires are showing that they consistently decline games, I'm going to choose a different umpire to work those games, because every time they decline, then I have to go back and reassign the game. It's much easier to just go with someone who's more likely to accept versus the person that continues to decline games. And it's important to note that being available is one of the best ways to get moved up into higher level games. As assignments may get turned back with late notice or added to the schedule, this leaves the assigner looking for somebody to fill the slot. If you're someone that they know will most likely accept that game, you have a higher chance of being put in the game. Now, let's talk about how you set your availability. There are two different types of systems. There are systems where you opt in as available and systems where you opt out as not available. Arbiter Sports is one of the most common assigning softwares used for umpires. And Arbiter will presume that you are available unless you go in and specifically block times and dates. As independent contractors, it's important that we keep our availability up to date from anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. And again, being known for inaccuracy makes you more likely to be skipped over for the next umpire. Remember, the number one job for an assigner is to get all their game slots filled. Now, when it comes to blocks, there are two different options. The first is that you can block out an entire day showing that you're not available. And the second is that you can block out a specific time frame that you're not available. So in the first scenario, you might block a whole day if you're going out of town. In the second, you might block part of a day if in the morning you're working, but you'd be available to work games in the afternoon or evening. Now, there are going to be situations where schedules change or things come up and we fail to update our calendars accordingly. That's going to happen and your assigner will understand, but the faster you are at responding to the assignment, the easier you make the life for them. And on most assigning softwares, when you decline a game, you have to put a reason why. And depending on the association, that may get shared with the rest of the board. So it's important that we try to have good reasons when we're declining games. A good reason could be something like, just found out I have to go out of town for work, or I have a child that's sick and I need to tend to that. But bad reasons would be things such as birthdays, anniversaries, spring break. Those are all things that we can schedule way out in advance. So let's make sure that we're blocking those before they come into the scheduling time frame. Now, with every assigning software, there's always going to be parts that can't be reflected in the scheduling. And when it comes to those weird parts of your personal schedule, it's important that you communicate them to your assigner. An example would be you're available to work 3 nights a week, and it doesn't matter which weeknights those are, but you certainly can't do 5. There's not going to be a specific way to reflect that in your assigning software, so by telling this to your assigner, they'll be able to use that information to assign you to the days that are most busy so that they're best using your availability. Another example would be telling your assigner where you live versus where you work. The assigning software is most likely only going to show you in one location, but if you tell your assigner where you work and where you live, they can try to schedule a game that's closer to your office on a weeknight and closer to your house on a weekend. Now let's talk about what to do when the game arrives. Once the assigner schedules you for a game and publishes the schedule, you should get an automatic notification either by email or text message. And if you're not getting that, be sure to go through your assigning software because there should be somewhere in there for you to turn on those notifications. Now, the first thing you should do when you get an assignment is first check the date and time and confirm that you're still available. Again, we never know when something might come up and interfere, so make sure that you're available. Second, after going through and confirming your availability, we then need to accept or decline the game. Now, the assigning software is most likely going to give you a deadline to accept or decline, and usually that's something like 24, 48, or 72 hours. But remember, The faster you accept or decline, the easier you make the life of your assigner. Even if you decline, if I was your assigner, your declining earlier on allows me to more quickly go and try to find another person to fill that slot. If you wait until the very end of that period, that hurts my ability to go get another umpire to fill that slot. Remember, the number one responsibility of an assigner is to get the slots filled. They'd much rather you decline a game immediately so that they can try to get someone else to fill the slot. Now, I mentioned the deadline to accept or decline, and in Arbiter, for example, those are referred to as turnbacks. As an assigner, I find the turnbacks are the number one way to make sure that you're not getting games in the future. When you let a game automatically turn back, it tells me that you're not checking your schedule, you're not being responsive to your umpiring responsibilities, and that you don't care about making me wait to get my assignments done. And in some associations, turnbacks are even fined. So it's super important that we stay on top of our assigning software and make sure we log in at least once or twice a day. Now, again, there are scenarios where we might not know whether or not we can accept or decline a game based on something out of our control, such as maybe a work trip that we're not sure if we're going out of town for. In those scenarios, it's best to reach out to your assigner and let them know what the situation is. They'll be much more understanding if you tell them why you can't accept or decline yet, versus just letting the game sit there for hours on end. Finally, once you accept the game, make sure to go and put it in your calendar. Put it in your personal calendar and put it in your work calendar. And most importantly, put it in your spouse's calendar that time is now accounted for. Now, let's talk about turnbacks of games you already accepted. For assigners, this is considered much worse than declining games because these are games that they were counting on you to cover and you already said that you could. Now, there are reasons why we might have to come off a game, and again, this could be something like a family illness or an unexpected work trip. These scenarios are going to happen, but when they do, try to tell your assigner as soon as possible so that they can get someone else. And remember, everyone is going to have these come up every once in a while in their lives. It's just the way life works. But there are going to be other officials that do this more often and others that do this less. And for an assigner, remember, their number one responsibility is to get their games covered. So in the future, they're more likely of choosing between two officials to go with the one who's less likely to turn it back. And finally, if you do have to turn back a game, make sure that you're asking the assigner to come out and not just telling them to come out. Be someone that works with your assigner, not someone that bosses them around to work to your schedule. Now, I want to give you a little idea of how turnbacks are viewed in an association. They're not all viewed the same, and there are different levels of acceptability. The good reasons include things such as being assigned to work on a higher level assignment. For example, if you work both recreational and high school baseball, if the high school association asks you to work on a day where you're already assigned to the rec association, it should be accepted that you're going to move to the high school association. The same would apply if you're going from a high school game to a college game. Now, note that those are a pretty drastic change in level. We're not talking about going from 10U baseball to 12U baseball, but moving to a completely higher level, that should always be accepted by an assigner. They're always trying to work with you to help you advance in your career. Now, the acceptable reasons that wouldn't necessarily be good, but not necessarily bad either, are things such as changes to your daily job requirements, or a illness in the family, or something like a financial opportunity where you ask an assigner to move from one assignment to another because there's more games that you could work and you could make a higher level of income. What you need to note about this category is that while it's acceptable, it's only going to be acceptable a certain number of times. The more frequently you're turning back games because of these reasons, the more likely you are to lose out on future assignments. And for some officials, there will be situations where they definitely need to make more money on a Saturday, and they're originally scheduled with one high school game, but then offered the opportunity to work 4 travel games on the same day. In that scenario, let your assigner know where you're coming from. Tell them that, hey, you have an opportunity to make more money, and that's important to you at this time, and usually they'll be willing to work with you. A lot of these assigners already know each other and talk to each other on a day-to-day basis to split up resources. So don't simply decline your high school game and give a fake reason. Just let your assigner know where you're at and they'll try to work it out with the assigner of the other games. Now, the bad reasons. Again, these are things such as birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. Look, if I'm an assigner and you tell me that you have a birthday coming up for your spouse on a certain date, I'm going to assume that you're telling me that you would like to have more games on that date. Now, if that's not the case, you need to be blocking these out well before they ever get assigned. Again, I'm trying not to have to do my job twice assigning a certain game because you forgot to block out your wife's birthday. Keep these up to date as much as possible. You can get away with these mistakes once or twice, but the more often they occur, the more it's going to hurt your future schedule. And again, this is also going to apply to family events or even school assignments. School's important, family's important. Make sure we're reflecting those needs in our scheduling and our availability, but don't be turning back games because of something you failed to properly account for in your timing. Now, the ugly reasons for turning back a game. The first is going to be working for someone else. If you turn back a game and I as an assigner find out you're working for another level of baseball with another assigner, that's most likely going to be the end of you working for me at all. Again, you need to know that the umpiring community is pretty small and most of the assigners all talk to the other assigners on a regular basis. And we'll work together to schedule Saturdays where we might have a lot of games and a shortage of officials. This goes to the next point, that you're much better off being truthful about why you'd like to change assignments or if and when you need to versus lying. Tell the truth, let your assigner know. That'll make it much more likely that your reason is accepted and doesn't have compounding repercussions. Now, let's review some final notes. The first is be available. The best ability you can have is availability. And don't be afraid to text an assigner every once in a while if it's been a minute since you've gotten a game. We don't want to be pushy, but by reminding them that you're available and you'd like to work games for them, that's a good way to get top of mind to get assigned the next game. Second, note that your next level assignment for you will most likely come because someone backed out of a game late. It's important that you keep your availability up to date. That way, when a game opens up last minute, you might get the call to come and serve at that level. For a lot of officials, this is how we get our first varsity assignment. We're working a season as a freshman JV umpire, and when a last-minute assignment opens up, the assigner goes, sees that our name is available, and asks if we can fill in on that day. Keep your availability up to date, and it's a great way to advance your career. Third is ask, but don't annoy. It's okay to reach out to your assigner every once in a while and say, hey, what do I need to do to get to the next level? Or is there anything I can do to help you out in getting more games for myself? But don't annoy and don't beg. Example would be if you're not getting varsity games, it's okay to reach out to your assigner and say, hey, what do I need to do to advance? Or what can I do to help get more varsity assignments? But don't beg and annoy your assigner by repetitively asking. It may just be that they have better officials available at the time, or that they don't feel that you're in a position where they're ready to put you on those games. This is a process, and your assigner has a lot of things that they're trying to juggle to make sure all the assignments are covered. So it's okay to ask, but don't annoy them by constantly coming back with questions. Fourth, check your phone and email regularly. When I'm an assigner and it's 10 a.m. and somebody calls out of the game at 5 p.m., then I gotta try to find the first person who can be available. And what I'm most likely to do is text 5 or 6 umpires that show as available on Arbiter, and the first one that responds back that they're available is the one that gets the game. So for you, by keeping your alerts on and checking your phone regularly during the day, you're most likely to be the one that accepts first and gets that assignment. And finally, my last piece of advice to you is don't read into assignments. In different associations, you'll be able to go in and see the master schedule and see who's working what games. Look, at times, the scheduling is weird. Don't read into what game you're working compared to what game someone else is working. There's a lot of factors that go into why that's the scenario, and it's not always just who was the best umpire. Don't get caught up on these. Instead, focus on your games, focus on your assignments, and what you can do every day to keep improving. So now that we've reviewed scheduling, go ahead and leave a comment with at least one takeaway that you got from this video. Remember, what gets written gets remembered.